All right, hello listeners. This is Josh Hensley. I'm the worship pastor at New Work Fellowship, and this is the Beyond Sunday podcast that we have just created, and this is the second week of it. So it's really exciting because we have a brand new, well, most of them are brand new around the table, but last week we had Michael Shearon. He's here again today, and Cliff Hines is here, our kids and family pastor, and Steve Buttram, our assistant pastor. He kind of does the small group thing. So we're going to be hearing from them around the table today. Before we get started, guys, I just want to say that the last couple of weeks we've been promoting something that's really important tool that we're going to use, and this is going to help all of the ministries. It's going to help people connect to New Work, and it's called the Church Center app. This is going to sound like a little advertisement, but it is.
Commercial.
It's a little commercial for everybody. The Church Center app is your one place to go to sign up for groups, to check in your family on Sunday mornings and Wednesdays. It's the place where you can register for events and you can give. It's right all there on the app. And so make sure that you're downloading that Church Center app and that you're also connecting yourself with New Work Fellowship. If you haven't registered, just do that right there on the app. It's going to connect you to us with our database. And once you do that, once you click on that app the next week or whenever you want to use it, you're going to just pop right up.
I got to say two things about this app. Number one, it is so cool because I can check my kids in and check myself in without ever having to go to a kiosk. And now I can go to this kiosk and it has like this super cool barcode scanner and it prints my tickets right there. I don't have to wait in line. So literally my wife can pull up into the parking lot, check in. It's so awesome. And then here's how our small group has been using it. We've been kind of using it like as a group chat, and that's going about as productive as you think it would with 44 adults using a group chat. It is awesome. But yeah, the app is really, really cool. And I'm excited just for our church as we move forward using it.
Yeah, so the reason for this podcast is simply just to recap the past Sunday's sermon and also to look ahead to what's coming. During the podcast, we'll talk about things that you maybe have submitted as a question, or maybe that the pastors that spoke didn't really get to cover. So you're going to be able to hear some extended resources. And so last week, we're going to jump in. Last week, Michael got to speak. And Michael, what was the title of your sermon?
So last week was all about the biblical responsibilities that a parent has. We talked about there's three things that every warrior parent needs to do to prepare the arrows in front of them. Maybe you can remember these as I say them, but we got to shape, you got to sharpen, and you have to prepare to shoot those arrows into the world. So that's what we talked about last week. And this week coming up is going to be really awesome. Evan Ryan is going to be preaching for us, and he's going to be talking about the 4 parts or components of the arrow itself. So we're talking about kids and students and all that good stuff this week. It's going to be great.
So, Michael, we kind of jumping into the sermon. I'm the only one around the table who has, I guess, shot their arrows because my kids are all adults now. But one of the things you talked about, and I really, really, really stuck home with me, and you started very early. You said your parent, we're in a war, right? But the war's not with your kids. Mm-hmm. It's for your kids. Yeah. So, and I got to thinking about that as a parent. Who did I fight with the most? I mean, we're not going to name any names.
I'll tell you right now. Yeah. Right now, I'll tell you right now, boys. I've been fighting the most with Remy.
Yeah,
easy.
Yeah. Well, I fought with Nathan, so there you go. Everybody knows Hannah was the good one, and Zach was close behind. But I fought with Nathan a lot. But to your point, though, I did feel like it was a fight with Nathan, because I would use phrases like, "Why won't you do this? Mm-hmm. Why are you doing this?" And so it was very much a fight with him. The kid becomes the adversary, and I see you guys interact with your kids who are obviously, much younger than mine, and sometimes I just see the look on your face of, it's like, I'll take Clay, for example, baby Clay, Cliff's,
Let me just say this about baby Clay. Baby Clay is about the best baby I've ever seen. Yeah. Y'all's next one is not going to be like that.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. It's not going to be like that. I know they're all different. They're all different when they get home, but I just look at Clay and you guys, and I'm like, look at these lucky guys. Look at him. He's never cried. He's never done anything. So he's a great kid.
All right. So that's a perfect setup for this point for my story about Clay. We're at dinner one night. There's a place with some rolls, the best rolls in that particular genre, and Clay loves rolls, which is another reason why Clay and I are spirit animals. He loves rolls. He's having a great time, but he's not getting the rolls fast enough. And I sympathize with this again as well. And then Clay does this thing with that head where you guys know this as parents, where he does the thing and he just snaps back. What's always behind that? The parent's nose. So Bethany takes a
he's
shot.
in somebody's lap and just whiplashes himself.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So Bethany takes a shot, and Cliff, you've hit Cliff's wife. Okay, I know you're Cliff's child, but you see Cliff just kind of, it's like, all right, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. And he's got him, and he's got that Cliff bear hug around him. And at that point, you go, who's the adversary right now? Mm-hmm. Who are we fighting with? And I think as a guy, I know that I failed, and I fought more with the kid than the enemy who, is trying to influence and shape them.
It's an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
Right? If they just listen to everything that we told them to do and do it, life would be better. And I think the Lord probably thinks the same thing about us.
I know he uses my name for that very purpose.
There's nothing worse than what public does for parenting.
Dude.
Like, you parent different when you're at home, but when you're in public, I mean, the whispers come in and the clenched teeth.
I remember one time, we had just moved here, and me and Lena and Remy and Ruben, we were eating at El Bracero. Actually, I think we were eating with Pastor Kevin and Diana, and we were walking out, and Remy was upset, and so Lena's got a hold of her, and Remy bites her, like, on the collarbone.
Oh, no.
Walking the parking lot, and Lena looked at me and said, "You got to take her. You got to take her right now." So it's a real deal. It's a real deal.
One of the times I remember, and I don't know about your kids, but screens were introduced at some point to and when I say screens, I'm talking about like the little the gaming screens where you buy them because it has Kindle and you're reading books to your, but no, it's basically used for games. Anyway, our boys were getting in a fight over the screens, and this was one of my proudest and worst parenting moments. The only thing that I could do, because I was basically done with the fighting, they've hit each other with them, they've thrown them, and I was just done. It was a rainy day, so we were stuck inside, so I didn't get to say, like, go outside and do something else. And so the only thing I knew to do as a mature, grown adult was to grab them and slide open the back door on my house and chuck them as far as I could, like I was throwing a
frisbee.
Yeah, no, it was
Tomahawk.
more like a
Or like
tomahawk.
tomahawk.
Yeah. And all you could hear was, and accompanied by that were these like blood-curdling screams because you just threw away the lifeblood of the child, the screen.
Yes.
I went out there and grabbed them, but you
also threw
it was all for
$89 a piece or
yeah.
whatever.
It was all for the impact of it.
Yeah. I did a lot of snapping with my kids. Both, hey, stop. And then snapping in like, I've lost my mind. You people hate me. And it does. You feel like they become the adversary. You really do.
I feel like no matter where you are in the stage of parenting, I think all of us can agree it's hard. And we could probably all agree it's a lot harder than we thought it would be.
100%.
And so one of my favorite things about parenting is just how my relationship with my parents have changed. I mean, I'll call my parents and be like, oh, I'm so sorry for how I was. I'm so sorry for who I was. And it's good, but it's difficult.
Thinking about all the stages that you're in. I can remember back when I was not a parent and I was, always looking at all the other families and parents and trying to glean from them the things that they did well and remind myself, hey, don't do those things or what I assume was not as well. And so now that I'm trying to apply some of those things, I'm like, oh, I've definitely made mistakes along the way. And now I notice like, oh man, there's some things that I do very well and some things I don't do very well. And I'm still trying to implement some of those things that I've learned.
Well, there's always those people in your life, like, man, you either look at their kids or you look at the way that they parent, and it's like, man, if I could just be like that. But, God doesn't really call us to comparison or to be like other families.
Right.
And he gives us different children for different reasons. And sometimes we feel like maybe it's a punishment for our childhood ourselves. But God is growing each and every person in the family in some way. Whether you're the child or you're the parent, there is something that God is trying to do in and through all of you and even together as a unit.
You talked about shaping, Michael, and I love the sticks analogies, and some's got some knots in it. And there's a reason they got knots in it. My dad used to say he was going to put a knot in me. That was a different deal.
I know what that means.
Yeah. Snatch a knot, I think, was the phrase. But when we talk about shaping our kids, I think one thing, and you mentioned it in the sermon, and kind of want to expound on it here, is understand why you're shaping them. It's not like, hey, you've been given a human to keep alive for 18 to 21 years or whatever. We're shaping them not just so they have a good job, they get into good school, or they do that. We're shaping them for the kingdom.
Right. And I think one thing, I really didn't get to talk about it Sunday. I wanted to, but even if you're not intentional about shaping your children, that is still shaping them. Mm-hmm. And even if you're not shaping them, the reality is someone else is shaping them.
Oh, for sure.
And other things are. And so it is just so important to do it now and to start early. I don't think you could start early enough. I had a professor tell me one time, because we were talking about parenting in college, and I said, Professor, how early is too young to punish? He said, we started with our children on punishment at 18 months old.
Wow.
Are you telling me at 18 months old they know they know right and wrong? Well, I don't know, but they know how to say no, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Right?
Yeah, they do.
You talk about something is going to shape them, and Cliff, you say something that has really impacted not only Heather and I as parents, but just how we approach even the idea of faith within the household. What is it that you say about the faith?
I say that often that parents are the primary disciple makers within their home, within their child's life. And so often we get into this mindset of, I'm going to send them to the professional to get the work done, whether it's a sport, whether it's a thing they want to get involved in. But ultimately, we also do that with church and faith. We want to send them to church for an hour and expect the church to fix all the bad things in our kids.
And I think it's important that we don't back away.
Right.
If we're believing Christians, we don't back away from having those conversations, because for a child to view their parent as the primary faith example in their life is super important. Mm-hmm. Now that puts a little more pressure on us and responsibility, but that's the way that God intended it to be from the beginning.
You're going to shape the child regardless. You can choose as a believer to shape them in the faith and be the disciple maker in your home, or they're going to follow in the way that you act. Everybody knows Hannah, my daughter. Hannah acts a lot. We have some of the same mannerisms.
Yeah, you do.
But you're going to shape the child regardless. They spend most of their time with you. You're going to shape them. So make sure we're shaping them as the primary disciple maker and for the good of the kingdom of God.
One of the things that I've seen, and I didn't say this on Sunday, but one of the things that I've seen a lot, and I've heard this quote, and I think it's pretty accurate. I don't think it's true all the time, but the quote goes something like this: you can choose to raise your kids now, or you're going to have to raise your grandkids later.
That's good.
That's good. And I'm not saying that's true 100% of the time, because certainly there's circumstances that go into, tragedies happen with parents and grandparents have to step up. But that is just a sobering thought for me. And I can think of dozens of people that I have known that could be the case through. So the point is, you're going to have to do the work, and it's either going to be now or it's going to be later.
Well, the two things that you said, and on Sunday I thought about this. You said shaping and sharpening. Those things are done within your hands. Those things are done under your care with meticulous detail. Sometimes careless detail. You may make a mistake in that, but essentially that's done in your care. But once you put that arrow in a bow and you shoot it, it is out of your hands.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of where I am this week as I think about coming off of the message. When I choose the time is right to shoot my kids into the world, are they going to fly directly at the target that I'm shooting them towards? And are they going to be able to do that with the knowledge and the equipping and the shaping and the forming that I did when they were at home? Now, they may hit something along the way. They may be deflected. The wind may come in and blow them off course. But that brings me to this question. And Steve, I'm glad you're here because you have shot your arrows into the world. And, the most of us around the table now, Cliff, you are in the early stages of shaping. Michael, you're a little bit further along. But for me, I've got a teenager, I've got a preteen, and I've got a 10-year-old.
Let me tell you something, too. Your teenager is looking like a man.
Oh, my goodness.
It's the craziest thing. Like
he's going to have a mustache.
His whole facial structure.
He's got one. Now, it's a few hairs, but, but, I mean, we don't have to change the razor blades as much, but, it's going well.
So you get your old ones, you just kind of hand them down.
But anyway, how have you seen thinking about the sharpening and the shaping play out in the shooting?
That's a great question, and there are 3 specific different answers, and they're named Nathan, Zach, and Hannah.
Mm-hmm.
So with Nathan, I don't know that we shot the arrow of Nathan as he just said, I'm out. You know what I mean? I'm grown. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to go do that.
And I'd say that's probably more typical in a firstborn anyway.
Yeah. So he's the alpha. He's out there. He's making his decisions, and I'm going to say he's making his mistakes because he will agree. He made a bunch of them. He didn't go the path I would have shot that arrow. So kind of to expound on that, then you look back and you go, where did I not shape right? Where did I not sharpen right? And I want to come back to your deeper relationships and high expectations later in this podcast. But you look at that and you go, you just want to go out and you want to get the arrow and start over. Right? And you can't do that. The arrow is a metaphor. It's a human being that's 18 years of age. He left home right after he graduated high school. He moved. He's like, I'm out. And he moved to like Albany, New York. And we're like, hey, we weren't ready to let that arrow go yet. And he's like, no, I can do it. And you find out, for all of our teenage listeners that know everything, you don't. And you come back and you start over. Zach's a little different situation. Obviously, but now with him as in some of his disability, or I should say different abilities, because he's just enabled differently. Yeah. We don't shoot that arrow, but we kind of ease it out and let him and go out there and let him try those things and coach him through those things. Hannah, I didn't want that arrow to leave. Y'all know that. We talked about that not long ago. So it's all different, but I think whatever the path the arrow takes, if it's good, you go, I got this parenting thing down. I'm pretty solid on this. If it's bad, you put it all back on. You're like, maybe I didn't do enough. Maybe I didn't do that. But at the end of the day, when that arrow leaves the window, like the passage on Labor Day from 2 Kings, when that arrow leaves the window, when that child leaves the nest, you're not done, but you are out of control. You are out of control. It is now God's control. You can, certainly, there's still some shaping, refining, some tweaking, which I'm sure Evan will get into when he talks about the parts of the arrow. But like you got to let go and let God.
One of the things that I just kind of was thinking about this week is if our parents, if they don't shape and sharpen the arrow, what are the big things that do? Right. And I just could not escape this idea of how, especially for the students that we have, y'all don't think there's anything more shaping in their lives than social media. If you as a parent, right, have a child that has access, right, to the internet, that thing can be their worst enemy.
Absolutely.
And you need to be heavily invested, involved, monitoring, looking at what they're looking at, because it is shaping way more than we think that it is. I'm convinced it might be the top contributor to the mental health crisis that we're seeing in students. If you have a middle school girl, let me tell you what it's doing for them right now. It's a constant trap of comparison for them. And, that's just one of the things that I thought, man, what are the things that are shaping our students negatively? And that's one of them. And then, Steve, you said the second one is your friend group. Our students are sick of hearing it, but I'm going to say it for as long as I work with student ministry. My friends will determine the direction and the quality of my life. And I don't think that is just true for when we're students. I think that's true for when we're adults as well. So,
well, if you think about it as an adult, who you work with influences you. You guys influence me. I mean, every one of you. And so as adults, we are more conscious of what's influencing us so we can make that change. As an impressionable young person, you're not. When Hannah would want to go spend the night with a friend, there was the 1,000 questions from Dad. Where do they live? Where do they go to church? What do they do? Who are their parents? What's their phone number? What street do they? I mean, they were like, Dad, are you in the FBI? I'm like, no, I'm in the business of protecting my child.
Yeah.
So,
and I don't think that goes beyond kids either. I mean, that same statement is true for kids. I mean, when you see a kid that's doing one thing, most kids like, oh, I want to do that too. I mean, you can think about Pokemon,
Oh my gosh, Pokemon, bro.
Bring it up, right? I mean, one kid got a card, now two kids got a card. They want to trade that card and like, Mom, can you buy me this card because XYZ have these cards? And I think it goes. I mean, for anything you think of, it doesn't have to be just cards. It can be clothes that people wear.
It is.
It
You're
can
right.
Be the hairstyle that people have. Like, I want to be like that person because that person's probably popular, And so, how can I be like that?
Mm-hmm.
well, even in young kids like Clay, you see Clay interact with another child. I won't say baby, but another child his age. You can see them kind of interact with one another, and they kind of mimic each other.
Well, that goes back to parenting.
Yeah.
As a young child, who they're mimicking, their parents.
Yeah.
I mean, I've watched Clay. Like, when it's time to eat, he ain't eating until we've prayed.
Yeah.
And he goes through the motions, and he may not know what he's talking about, but he's gibbering
But
the
he's
stuff out.
foundational.
Knows.
Yeah,
He knows.
You think he knows?
Oh no, I'm saying he knows this is how we operate.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's learned. He's
learned,
picked up
man.
on it. It's awesome.
It's so cool to see it though. Like, I mean, we sit down and maybe he take a bite, but then when we're all sitting down at the table together, he's like folding those hands.
Hands
He clap
folded.
them, it's hands folded, and amen, amen, and he shakes his head. Let's go.
I love it.
So one thing you said was the deep relationships with high expectations. I want to kind of be a little transparent in this and say I didn't do that right as a dad. I had high expectations. Now I got better in the versions. There's version 1, 2, and 3. But the first one, I had high expectations. Like, we were gonna make good grades, we're gonna behave, and we're gonna be in church, and we're gonna.
Right.
But he didn't have that deep relationship. And so I think as parents, you have to be careful. First, engage your child. Understand that, your dad or your mom or whatever you are, or in the case of a grandparent, but you're an authority figure, but you're an authority figure that loves them. Mm-hmm. And then the expectations, and I think it flows much better together. You said it in the sermon, but I know that's something I didn't do well. And honestly, the relationship suffers as they're an arrow out the window.
I think too, like within deep relationships and high expectations, I would say for me, I am guilty of communicating my high expectations with my kids when I'm frustrated. And I don't necessarily think that's a healthy thing for them. And I think if you're out there and you're listening and you're a parent, you might say the same thing. But I think if the only time that I communicate my high expectations with them is when I'm upset or frustrated or disappointed, what is that training them to think about expectations? So I think there just needs to be some more one-on-one time with me and my kids where I'm not frustrated about something. I'm not upset about something. But over the years, just watching tons of coaches, and I don't think this just applies to parenting. I think the philosophy of deep relationships and high expectations, I think it's a great philosophy for bosses and employees.
Oh, absolutely.
I'll just tell you this. I think from personal experience, I think this is one of the things that Kevin Lee does the best at. I mean, he is deeply connected to the staff members.
Oh, absolutely.
And because of that, you can have high expectations.
Yeah.
But if you come in guns blazing and you have high expectations with no relationships, it ain't going to work out good long term.
Expectations without relationships is a transaction.
Yeah.
And it's a transactional relationship.
And I can find somebody cheaper.
Oh, yeah.
We all can.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
I think that's all really, really good. And I wish we had Evan in here this week because he could talk about what he's going to be talking about on Sunday. But Michael, you mentioned it earlier that it's going to be looking at the arrow. It's going to be looking at the little different pieces of the arrow, and there's 4 different ones that he's going to be looking at. I kind of looked at a little bit of his notes, but it really looks at maybe as a metaphor, kind of what a child's life looks.
What does a good arrow look like is kind of the direction. And I'll just give you a little preview. The catchphrase for Sunday is this: good arrows are built, not born.
Come on.
They're built, not born. But that's what we got coming up. Looking forward to on Sunday. Let's kind of go around the room and maybe talk about, if you've got one thing that's coming up in your ministry area that you wanted to provide a commercial for, what would it be? And I'll go ahead and start. That way you guys can think about yours. But if you're a parent of a student, on September the 20th, through the 22nd, we're going to be taking a fall retreat down to Clarksville, Tennessee. And you guys, we've put a lot of work into this retreat, and I don't just mean for the fun, I mean for the spiritual aspect. Here's where we're going. The entire retreat is going to be about this one phrase, I will be ready. We know that temptation is knocking heavily at the door of students, and we want to equip them with 3 things that they can do to be ready when that temptation comes. So that's going to be September the 20th through the 22nd. If you have any questions about that, shoot me a text or an email. Would love to talk to you more about that.
And you can sign up on the Church Center app.
You can. It's
right on the
pretty
Church
awesome.
Center app.
Yeah.
Right on the Church Center app. So if you have questions or you want to sign up, we would love to answer those for you. But we want our students, man, we want them to be ready. And we just know that if we don't prepare them, nobody else will. So we want to.
So yeah, Michael, 5 days after you guys get back on September 27th, we have our family kickball night. It's our 3rd time doing this, and it's a fun time.
It's so much fun, dude. It's so much fun.
Well, there'd be free ibuprofen.
And I'll just say this.
Hey, we can have that ready if you need it.
It's not like regular kickball. I don't want to give it away, but it's so awesome. And what I love about it is anybody can play. It doesn't matter. Like anybody can play in it. It's so much fun. You need to come.
And also we call it family kickball night, but some people are like, I don't have a family, I don't have a kid. But I'm like, yeah, but you can still come because you're a part of the New Work family. Amen. So if you're a single person, if you're an older person who just want to watch, if you're an older person who want to play, we want to invite you to come out and have a good time. That's going to be on September 27th from 5 to 7 o'clock. We're going to have food. We're going to have Kona Ice is going to be out there. And then not only that, we're going to end the night with doing some s'mores over the fire.
What day is that?
September 27th. That's Friday.
Friday, okay.
Yeah, Friday, September 27th.
Awesome. So just real quick, I'm probably violating the rules by doing a couple things, but there's one thing that's going on right now. It's one of our care groups. It's the Smart Step Family Study. You don't have to sign up for it. Just show up at 1015, room 105. So this is a class that Tracy and I have taught a couple times. Andrew and Melissa Wilson are teaching it right now. And what it's about is how do we become a step family? We're talking about parenting. Well, how do you parent somebody else's kids? How do you inherit this, and how do you continue to shape and to sharpen and to do those things and function in a way that brings glory to God and the children glorify the kingdom? So that's coming up. Also, September 15th, if you miss it, we'll do it again in November, the First Steps class. You can sign up again on the Church Center app, which is my favorite thing. You sign up for everything on that. But that's the
this
first
Sunday, by the way.
This Sunday, September 15th, is at 10:15 in room 111. So you can sign up for that. Or if you miss that, we can do again in November. But please do that. It tells you what we believe, why we believe. You can become a member of the church. You can talk about being a member of the church. You can ask questions. And it's Nikki Heiserman and I teach that.
Last I heard, there were 15 people in it.
We were at 15 this morning.
Yeah. So don't feel like you're going to be the only person in there and it's going to be awkward.
Yeah, it's a different podcast. That's Coffee with Steve and Nikki. So.
Can we just talk about how awesome Sunday was? First Sunday of 4 services. Man, you guys are troopers. Thank you so much for those of you who made shifts to come. It was an electric day.
Hey, and then,
all across the board.
Yeah. Lakeside baptism.
Wow.
Craziness. Yeah. I mean, just a great
25
day.
people entered those waters.
And everybody said, was the water cold? Nope, but the air was.
Yeah.
Right.
Afterwards, after you were wet. But it was an amazing Sunday. Hey, so listen, folks, we really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for listening to this Beyond Sunday podcast, whether you're a parent, a mentor, or will be either in the future. We hope you took something valuable from today's discussion. And please make sure to like and subscribe and tune in next week. Guys, I appreciate you for inviting me and glad to be here with you all.
You bet. See you guys later.
Bye.